Miami Hurricanes have officially missed out on top transfer portal quarterback John Mateer. He chose the Oklahoma Sooners. So here's what happens next with the Miami Hurricanes quarterback room.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the College Football Playoff. The CFP is here, and you don't want to miss a moment of the action. The College Football Playoff, presented by Allstate, begins with 4 first-round games December 20th and 21st on ESPN, ABC, TNT, and Max. All right, my friends, on this episode, we're going to talk about the latest on the Miami Hurricanes transfer portal updates because they've got a defensive tackle who's starting a visit today. My personal favorite receiver in the portal is visiting Miami now. He arrived last night. We will talk about the state of the Miami Hurricanes quarterback room and how Emory Williams looks to be more than likely, but not necessarily, the starting quarterback heading into next season. But we'll talk about what Emory Williams has done to this point and what he can do to cement himself as the Miami Hurricanes starting quarterback because, yeah, in case you missed it, if you've been living under a rock, we got the Mateer decision last night, which was not good timing for us because we all knew that if Miami was going to have a shot at landing top transfer portal quarterback John Mateer, who's Cam Ward's former understudy at Washington State, we were going to have to sweat out that Oklahoma visit. OU were the prohibitive favorites. They got the first, turns out, only visit. He's got the ties not only to his former offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach being at Norman, just being hired, but he also grew up about 2 hours away from Oklahoma, apparently dreamed of playing there all of his life. And yeah, Mateer decided last night to give the Oklahoma Sooners his commitment. The Sooners, had been the favorites, since he entered the portal. And I'm not saying this wasn't a loss. Like, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be one of these Gators or Seminoles content creators who, when you miss out on a player, they're like, well, wasn't really a miss, or this guy was asking for too much money. I'm going to tell it like it is, man. I think Miami wanted John Mateer. Unfortunately, they did not land him. The Hurricanes were believed to have made a serious push. And supposedly, I was reading last night that Bill Belichick in North Carolina tried to make a push, a very late push as well. And one of the things that sealed the deal for Mateer to lock in with the Oklahoma Sooners was reportedly a call from Baker Mayfield, NFL star, former Sooners quarterback. He helped seal that deal. He spoke to Mateer on the phone and convinced him to lock it in with Oklahoma. So Mateer is off the board. Now, you guys know that I absolutely supported Miami making a run at John Mateer because this is someone who's a proven talent, just had a tremendous season on the field for Washington State. I believe this is a guy who could elevate most programs in the country. I believe Oklahoma is going to be better than they would have been otherwise with John Mateer at quarterback. That would have been the case for Miami as well. I think that this was the guy available who would have given you the best chance to win next year. But we miss out, and so we move on because, folks, I absolutely respect the value of nurturing and developing the players that you recruit out of high school. That's becoming a lost art these days with the transfer portal. You're microwaving a lot of rosters. But in the case of Miami, you know that there are players, including and especially Emory Williams, who are in that quarterback room right now that I really like. And I like the idea of not always recruiting over your players and giving the guys you brought in out of high school who have been loyal to you to this point, giving them an opportunity to play. And now Miami has the chance to do that. They have the chance now to see Emory Williams, player they organically recruited, take that starting quarterback job. He's going to be in his third year next season. He would be the favorite to win the starting job, but I'm not going to pretend that they're just going to hand it to him. There's going to be a competition. That competition is going to start in spring football. It's going to carry into fall camp. We don't know exactly when Mario Cristobal and Shannon Dawson would officially name their starting quarterback, but Emory Williams would obviously be the favorite to land it. This is someone who was a true freshman back in 2023, started 2 games, and, he happened to start against the 2 toughest defenses that Miami faced that year, a home game against Clemson, which Miami did win with him under center, and Miami lost a close one against, this was not 2024 Florida State, it was 2023 Florida State, the team that had an excellent defense and won the ACC that year. Emory Williams played in a close game on the road and showed a lot of grit against the Seminoles, and you remember, he put his body on the line on that 4th down run. He broke his arm on that play when Miami was trying to mount the comeback and tie the game. Since he broke his arm, Williams, Miami had to bring in Tyler Van Dyke, who, threw an interception, as he often did, to seal that game for Florida State. So in those 2 games that he started last year, Emory Williams threw last year for 470 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception as a true freshman that year. Now this year, as what turned out to be a redshirt freshman season, he preserved his redshirt. He only played in the Ball State game, because you can play in a handful of games without burning the redshirt. He just played in the one, but he played very well. Emory went 11 for 12, 161 yards and a touchdown, was nearly perfect. Obviously not against the best competition, but that's what he did this year. And folks, I've had the ability and the privilege watching practices. We don't get to watch practices during the season, but watching spring ball this past year, watching fall camp this year, I've been able to watch Emory Williams' development, and I think he can absolutely be something special if he grows into that opportunity. He doesn't have that much tape, doesn't have very much experience, but the only way to get experience is to play. And I think Emory Williams can absolutely grow into this opportunity. He has leadership qualities. His teammates respect him. He's 6'5", 220 pounds. Emory's not much of a runner. He can scramble a little bit. He broke his arm on a running play, but he doesn't have great quickness, obviously, but he has very good pocket presence. He's got a quick, accurate release. I think his accuracy and his decisiveness in making quick throws, I think it makes him a good fit in Shannon Dawson's offense, and I don't think Miami would be this open to him being the starting quarterback if he wasn't a good fit. He has leadership qualities. His teammates respect him. I love the fact that he got to learn behind Cam Ward for a season. So how will Miami fans embrace it? I'm already seeing some of the live comments, by the way. You guys, there's some trolls in here. You're going back and forth. We are live right now on our YouTube channel, so make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. And if you listen to the audio version, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, subscribe to Locked On Canes, wherever you get your pods. Yeah, I've been getting mixed feedback from Miami fans. People are very, very torn on this, okay? Some are wishing Miami would still go all in on, a free agent transfer portal quarterback. Obviously, we tried to with John Mateer. We missed. Miami has had a selective approach. I think Mario Cristobal and company wisely, they're not just throwing down for every quarterback who's in the portal. I think they only threw down to try to land a guy that they knew was a guaranteed upgrade, and that was Mateer. And so after missing out on Mateer, I don't necessarily think Miami's just going to throw in for anybody. I think Emory Williams legit should be the expected favorite here to start. Other fans who are more pro Emory Williams they're tired of all the transfer portal drama. They're tired of bringing in one-year guys. They want to reward Williams for being a Cane since high school. I did receive this one comment I want to talk about, and I respect all the comments that I get on our X account at Locked On Canes. I respect our Locked On Canes insiders who write us messages on the texting service. By the way, we include the link in the show description below if you want to become a Locked On Canes insider. But I received a very concerned comment from a Locked On Canes insider who he reminded me that all of the reports that came out of fall camp and spring ball, including my reports, because I was there watching these practices, were that Cam Ward was clearly ahead of Emory Williams and the rest of Miami's quarterback room. And so his concern would be, hey, we just lost a guy who's clearly ahead. We should have brought in someone else. What are we doing? But my rebuttal is very simple to that. If you're concerned over that, first of all, Cam Ward is the best quarterback in the country. So Ward being ahead of all of Miami's other quarterbacks in practice should not be a surprise. I mean, did you see what he just did this year? That's number one. Number two, let's remember when Cam Ward was at Washington State, he was clearly ahead of John Mateer for those 2 years. Then Mateer finally got his opportunity, and he made the most of it. Now, I'm not saying Emory Williams is John Mateer. I hope he is, but I'm not saying he is. But I am saying we're not going to know how good Emory Williams is until he gets his opportunity. And I like the fact that he was able to sit behind Ward for a year and learn, because that's the type of guy you want to learn from. You want to learn his practice habits. You want to learn, all of his different rituals, the way he studies for games. Emory Williams had the opportunity to sit behind arguably the greatest quarterback to ever wear orange and green. And hopefully a lot of those lessons learned can take Emory farther. We'll talk about other factors in the quarterback room when we come back, including, because again, Miami's not going to just hand Emory Williams the job. There are others in the room. How do they stack up? Also, guys, I'm not going to ignore the fact that Miami only has 3 scholarship quarterbacks. So just because you didn't land the big fish who chose Oklahoma doesn't mean Miami won't take a look at somebody to add some depth to that room, to add an insurance policy. So Miami might not be done quarterback shopping, even if Emory Williams, who I support, by the way, ends up being the starting quarterback next year. So, guys, you want to sit tight. We have so much coming. We may have to do 3 episodes today because we have so much material. You want to keep it locked right here. We're going to talk about what happens next in the portal for Miami as well. Visitors in today. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. I'm only getting started with the college football playoff. Guys, it is starting this week. It's starting on Friday, and I wish Miami was in it, but if the Canes aren't in, at least Locked On Canes is in the college football playoff. And with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with a college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m., leading into our first matchup, which is going to be SMU battling Penn State at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Do not miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure for your next listen, by the way, you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I did a crossover episode with Zach Sako from Locked On Nittany Lions. We talked about the SMU Penn State game. Another thing I'll say about Emory Williams is certain Miami fans who are very concerned about, not landing a big time transfer starter will say, like, hey, did you watch, Emory in 2023 when he started those 2 games? Was very buttoned up, was very conservative. I don't want a game manager as my quarterback. Well, first of all, folks, don't be so convinced that that's all that Emory Williams is. Again, you got to remember those 2 games that he started as a true freshman in 2023 were against the 2 best defenses that Miami faced, against Clemson and Florida State, who were both excellent that year, especially Florida State. That was before they did the nosedive this year. And that was as an 18-year-old. So there has been development that has taken place since then. So don't just assume because you saw the guy play the role as an understudy, backup starting quarterback in those days as a game manager, that's going to be who he is moving forward. Now, I will say something else, though. It's not Cam Ward. And we can't expect any quarterback that we anoint or any quarterback we bring in to be Cam Ward, because that dude is absolutely one of one. So guess what? Miami, unfortunately, won 10 games, not the 11 or 12 we needed to be in the CFP, with the top offense and the top quarterback in the country. So this is also a reminder that if you want to do right by Emory Williams or whoever the starting quarterback is this year, you need to fix that defense. And you need to really secure your offensive balance because, again, without Cam Ward, no matter who the next starting quarterback is, Miami is probably going to need to be run heavier next year. It's a good thing you have a good offensive line, and you're going to have horses like Mark Fletcher and Jordan Lyle headlining your running back room. And there's even a chance that Damian Martinez might be back. I'd probably put that at less than 50% that Martinez is back, but don't completely outrule a Martinez return for next year. So how about other factors in Miami's quarterback room? Again, we would presume, I would project Emory Williams to be the starter for 2025. And that would assume Miami doesn't go after a blue chip transfer. There's, obviously you just lost out on the biggest fish. But you also have in that quarterback room Judd Anderson, who's going to be a redshirt freshman next year, and true freshman Luke Nickel. They're also going to get a chance to compete. Judd Anderson, 6'7", with a strong arm, very good mobility for his size. He was a dual sport athlete, played basketball as well in high school. And I did, Judd arrived last spring as an early enrollee, true freshman. I watched him in spring ball, watched him in fall camp. I definitely saw some growth in Judd as a quarterback between spring ball and fall camp. So Judd Anderson seems to be, and hopefully is, developing. And he finished his high school career at a huge program, Warner Robins in Georgia, played very well there. Then you have Luke Nickel, who's coming in as a true freshman, early enrollee. He's going to be here in January. I would say about Nickel, he's more than likely going to be a Miami starting quarterback someday, even if that day is not 2025. If he's not ready to win the job as a true freshman, he'll probably be the starter someday. This is the guy with the highest ceiling here. Luke literally just won his second consecutive state championship at Milton High School in Georgia, Georgia's largest classification. They won 18 straight games going back to last year. He's been lighting it up, Nickel, for the past 2 seasons. He threw for, I think, over 400 yards in the state championship, was throwing dimes. Nickel was throwing dimes all day. And Nickel also has very good wheels. He's got good legs in addition to a good arm. And so I would imagine even as a true freshman, he will get a chance to compete for the starting quarterback job. Even if he's not ready for that next season, I think he's going to be ready for that down the road. Now, you also have to wonder, could Miami still take a shot at another top portal arm? Options of guys who are out there right now. Keep in mind, maybe more will enter the transfer. Like we're wondering, is there any chance Quinn Ewers could enter the transfer portal if Texas gets eliminated from the playoff and they shove him out in favor of Arch Manning, which they're probably going to do? Ewers could also decide to go pro, or he could play another year. You have to monitor that situation. As far as guys who are available right now, Malik Murphy from Duke, Miami hasn't really shown much interest there. Fernando Mendoza from Cal, I thought Miami would be interested, but they haven't really kicked the tires there. Guys like that are available. Should Miami pivot and give these guys a look? Out of those two, I would prefer Mendoza. I think he's a lot more consistent than Murphy. Another one who's out there now who definitely is not like a top line starter at this point, maybe could be someday, but a lot of Miami fans ask me about Air Noland, former Ohio State quarterback who's in the transfer portal now. Miami recruited him heavily in 2024. He's available now. Now, Noland, he lacks experience. So if Miami were interested, I don't know if they are, he would have to be willing to compete, because that's obviously not a John Mateer or a Cam Ward from last year who comes in and takes the starting job. He would have to compete. I don't know what Noland's priorities are for his next destination. And again, I haven't seen any concrete evidence that Miami is interested, but I really liked Air Noland coming out of high school. I think Miami did as well. So one of the things we have to wonder about is, Miami only has 3 scholarship quarterbacks heading into next year. So you've got Emory Williams, Judd Anderson, Luke Nickel. So do you need to add another arm, like maybe find another Reese Poffenbarger type? Find someone with some experience, maybe coming out of a smaller school who can be an insurance policy, a guy who's probably not going to win the starting job, but maybe could win the starting job, but add a little bit of depth there, because 3 scholarship quarterbacks is not a lot. The last time Miami had just 3 scholarship quarterbacks in 2022, they had to use all of them. So they got down to the final guy. Tyler Van Dyke got injured for a long stretch that year. Jake Garcia didn't play well and also got injured. And Jakari Brown, as a true freshman, had to start a handful of games. And then they had no insurance policy behind him at that point. So Miami might consider, even if it's not a top line starter, Miami might consider adding another arm. Reese Poffenbarger has left and found a landing spot in the transfer portal, but someone like that, maybe coming out of a smaller school who's got a couple of years of starts under his belt to add. Because the other thing Miami's quarterback room does not have is experience. I mentioned Emory Williams has started 2 games. Judd Anderson has 0 starts. Luke Nichols, coming out of high school, 0 collegiate starts. So you might need to look at an insurance policy just in case. So let's talk about other transfer portal spots, because there is some news. You've got a defensive tackle who's visiting Miami today. You've got my personal favorite receiver in the transfer portal who is visiting today. We'll talk about all of that and so much more, my friends. You want to keep it locked right here, because we're nowhere near done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Oh, my friends, I already know you're keeping it locked to FanDuel. We've been having so much fun and winning money this college football season. You've got the CFP starting this weekend. You got the NFL playoffs. They're going to be here before you know it. Get ready to tackle all of the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with that $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Perfect complement to FanDuel is Prize Picks. Folks, this is daily fantasy made easy, and it's a great way to win cash while you watch the games and you play these daily fantasy lineups. Folks, I've been using Prize Picks since 2021, and I have been addicted to this app. It really is the best place to get real money sports action. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place. You can win up to 1,000 times your money right now on Prize Picks. You simply select 2, 3, 4, 5 players and predict if they're going to go over, more, or less than their stat projections, and you're winning real cash up to 1,000 times your money. And I love how you can go cross sport on Prize Picks. You can have 2 college football players, 2 NFL players, a hockey player right there on the same selection. You guys are going to get addicted to Prize Picks like I am. Join now because the holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks this December right now, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Pixmas. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download Prize Picks in the App Store right now. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We are live, by the way, so if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. If you're listening to the audio version, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. All right, so this is an important visitor starting today. Louisiana Tech defensive tackle David Blay is visiting. He's arriving today. He's visiting through Saturday morning. This would be an important get because DT is a big-time position of need. And I know, like, some of you groan when you hear about a G5 player, but David Blay is sought after by a bunch of Power 4 programs. We'll tell you who some of those are. 6'4", 303 pounds. He's very explosive and an aggressive pass rusher from the interior. That's something we know Miami's staff likes. 6.5 sacks this year, 10.5 tackles for loss, 46 total tackles. And obviously coming from Louisiana Tech, you know, they don't play the toughest of schedules, but they did have a game against Arkansas in the SEC this year, and he played very well in that game. He had 5 tackles, 2 TFL, and a sack against the Razorbacks. So, again, Miami is unlikely, as we talked about yesterday. Doesn't seem like we're trending so well with Keyshawn Silver out of Kentucky. He's trending to USC, last I heard. But if Miami can get David Blay, who's very sought after, this would be an important get. So far, Blay has visited Penn State, and USC is in Southern California. I think he might also maybe visit South Carolina, the other USC. I think there's another school that might be in play for a visit, but of course Miami would, like to see him lock it up during his visit that's coming up today. Another name, I don't know if Miami's going to be interested. Miami did just land a safety, so at least they get a very, very good one. He was the second-ranked safety in the portal a couple of days ago. But there's another safety maybe Miami could look at, Ohio State safety Jaden Bonsu. He has entered the portal. I bring him up because Miami recruited him out of high school in 2023. So you have to wonder if there could be any interest there. Here's a player Miami missed out on. I know Miami was trying to get in the mix for Alabama transfer receiver, tight end, Caleb Odom, but he picked Ole Miss last night. So when Odom was coming out of high school, Ole Miss and Miami were like right at the top for a while, and then Bama ended up swooping in and getting him. So, he ends up at one of the other schools that was high on his list coming out of high school. Miami lost out on this one. Another negative update. We've known for a couple of days that Isaiah Horton had, as of Monday morning, he had filled out the paperwork necessary to enter the transfer portal. I was hoping there could be a chance that Miami could keep Horton, who was their third leading receiver last year. But as of Wednesday night, last night, Horton has officially entered the portal, and there's a lot of Alabama buzz. So any dream that I had of convincing Isaiah Horton to stay is not necessarily dead, but it's on life support now. As Horton is likely to land at Alabama. Thankfully, Miami has landed, CJ Daniels from LSU, who can essentially be the Isaiah Horton replacement. We'll talk more about him in a second. Now, Hurricanes do have a receiver visiting right now, and if you can get this guy, he would be the best possible Xavier Restrepo replacement. You could not do any better replacing the X-Man than Kevin Concepcion from North Carolina State. This guy is at the top of my wish list. He arrived at Miami yesterday evening, sent a nice picture of the Miami view from his hotel. He's visiting today, so hopefully we can get some good feedback there. I don't have a lot yet from how KC's visit is going. Alabama and Texas A&M are among the other heavy suitors for Concepcion. So hopefully Miami makes a really good impression on the visit, and especially since some of your other receiver options are starting to thin out a little bit, because Miami last weekend hosted Eric Rivers from FIU for a visit, and he landed at Georgia Tech last night. So you can cross Eric Rivers off of your list. Hopefully Miami did land CJ Daniels, but hopefully KC Concepcion is one we can get some traction for. So just to recap, here's what Miami has landed so far. Hurricanes have 2 portal commits both this week. Second-ranked safety Zachariah Poyser from Jacksonville State. I could definitely see him teaming up with Zaquan Patterson for the next 3 seasons, ZP and ZP. And Poyser, really cool story, because he dreamed of playing for Miami. And so it's, he gets to live that childhood dream on the field starting next year. Was a very productive player at Jacksonville State. And as mentioned, Miami has also landed LSU receiver CJ Daniels. I really like what CJ said after committing to Miami. So this is a nice endorsement for Emory Williams, if he is, in fact, going to be the starting quarterback next year. So CJ, he made the effort to spend an extra day on campus at Miami. Miami's doing their practices for the Pop-Tarts Bowl. He watched practice. He watched Emory Williams very closely, he said, and he liked what he saw. He says he would feel comfortable if that was his starting quarterback next year. He also spoke with Emory, and he feels good about the conversation that they had. So if, more likely than not, Emory Williams is going to be Miami's starting quarterback next year. I like the fact that CJ Daniels, he was comfortable with that when he decided to come to Miami. So here's what I look at, and you guys are more than invited to help us out with this conversation. So leave some comments on the episode. We'll revisit this. But here's what I look at as remaining needs, big time needs. I'd probably put defensive tackle at the top of that list, because Miami's losing a lot of guys. Now, I like some of the guys they have in the room. Justin Scott should get an opportunity for more playing time as a former 5-star recruit. Was a true freshman this year, didn't play much. And Ahmad Moten should be in line to be a starter next year. He had a really good second half of the season this year, but you're losing a bunch of veterans from that room, like Simeon Barrow, Marley Cook, and CJ Clark. So, the Hurricanes, I think, could use an experienced defensive tackle. It's why they've made a run at Keyshawn Silver. It's why Miami has David Blay visiting today through Saturday. So defensive tackle for me is a big need. I think Miami is okay on the edge. So if they do find any great edge rushers available, I know people have been commenting on Patrick Payton being in the portal. I haven't had any evidence that Miami is going to be active there. I think the Hurricanes are okay on the edge, especially if Akeem Mesidor comes back, which is possible. And big expectations next year for Ruben Bain, who may play both inside and outside. And Miami's got some young pass rushers. Malik Bryant is ready to take another step up, but maybe a luxury pick if Miami looks at any edge rushers. I don't see that as being a huge need. I do think linebacker is a need. Miami took a shot at Bayer from Nebraska, who ended up committing elsewhere. I think Miami could use a rangy linebacker. Cornerback is a need. Hurricanes have hosted long corner Emmanuel Carnley, 6'3" from Arizona. We'll see if Miami can close there. He's obviously been weighing his options. I've seen Miami linked to Takario Davis, but nothing on a visit. I don't know how concrete that is, but we could use a corner for sure. Heading into next year, you'd project Damari Brown and OJ Frederic as starters there. So the Hurricanes have good talent there, but I think you need more and you need more depth. I think Miami is more than okay at tight end and running back. I don't think they need anything there. They have been looking at inline tight ends, blocking tight ends, not so much receiving tight ends, but they have been looking at Cam McCormick replacements. So maybe not so fast, my friend, on tight end, but at running back, I think we're good. I don't think we need anything there. Let's see, receiver, even I mentioned even after landing CJ Daniels, which was good, I'd still love to add another. Casey Concepcion would be my personal favorite there. Offensive line, Miami has been looking at centers. We've had a couple of possible options commit elsewhere. I think outside of center, I think Miami's good everywhere. If they don't land a center, you've got guys who are currently on the roster who can play that position, like Ryan Rodriguez, who can play guard or center. Nino Francavilla, who was a true freshman this year, can play center, and S.J. Alofa-Tuli, who's coming in as a true freshman, can play center. He'd obviously be very young to take on a starting role right away, but Miami has been looking at centers. And then, quarterback. Quarterback, probably just a depth option, if anything, at this point, after missing out on John Mateer. And, Miami did look at a kicker. He ended up committing elsewhere. But, Miami has the former number one kicker coming out of high school, Abram Murray, he was a true freshman this year. He's going to be a redshirt freshman next year. So hopefully Abram is up to the job if Miami does not find somebody. All right. So folks, I'm sure the comments were a circus today. So I'm going to have to go back. I wasn't paying that close attention to the live chat because I didn't want to get too distracted by all the arguments, but I'm going to go back and look at those. You guys let me know. Do you want Miami to take a shot at a top-line quarterback? There aren't that many left, of course, but do you want Miami to take a shot, or are you like me and you want to see Emory Williams get that opportunity next year? Let us know in the comments below. We will talk to you guys again tomorrow on another episode of Lock. We're going to have multiple episodes tomorrow, by the way, because we're going to be talking with a few different folks. I think even the Truth Teller is going to make a cameo at some point tomorrow. We're going to have our guy, Will Padron, is going to be on tomorrow. We're going to have a few guests for you. So we'll talk to you then on another episode, multiple episodes of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.